What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you the other competitive version of Regenesis. This time it is the turn of Regenesis, Beastial. Now the other competitive version of the Regenesis can be considered as the cash tier version, and a lot of people right now in the forums and on the chats are really kind of comparing and asking the question is which is better, the Regenesis with Beastials or with cash tierers? Well, ultimately through testing this deck out, I've been able to put this build together. I'm going to take you through it, show you what we've got and explain why we've got it, as well as showing you a demo side deck. My ultimate finding between this and the cash tier version is that the cash lets you have a bit more control in what you're trying to do and kind of controls your opponent a little bit more with Fenrirs and of course unicorns. Whereas the Beastials can be much more damaging if the environment is very heavy on the Mitsurugi lineups, because that's when the Beastials are going to come into their own. You'll see throughout the list that you don't naturally play any lights or darks that you're putting into the graveyard, bar a couple of hand traps here and there, so that's when you're going to be relying on your opponent more so that entire Beastial engine can be subbed out for your side deck, but it's also one of the ones that if you are in a, as I've mentioned, a Mitsurugi heavy environment, it's going to put in a lot more work. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. Diving headfirst into the profile, we'll start off with the Regenesis. You're going to be on free Regenesis Archfiend. Pretty staple and standard on this one. This is the most important Regenesis monster, as it will lead you into all of your other Regenesis cards. The other Regenesis monsters we are going to be playing will be the Sage, the Lord. A lot of people like to cut the Lord, which I can understand. It is a bit of an annoying brick because it has to banish a 25/25 on the field, but that's when you can get rid of the Archfiend. The idea behind the Lord is if you have activated code, you will struggle to clear out anything that is above 2500 attack, and especially if it can't be targeted. Because if that monster can't be targeted, it means even your warrior will not be able to out it, and that's where Regenesis Lord comes into play, and it is your only Regenesis light monster that you use that could be utilized for a Beastial play as well. I do think it's highly advisable to be playing the Regenesis Lord, whether you're being in this version or the cash version. It's just nice to have that main deck boss monster that can help you clear out cards if they do put up a wall of protection, or just something that just generally can't be targeted, because then even in the cash version, the Fenrir can't out it as well. For the other Regenesis cards, one warrior and one dragon, I'm absolutely fine with this particular ratio. I feel that in another version, not the cash version, but in any other version, you might consider playing 2 dragon and 2 warriors. Some people do consider playing 2 sages. Honestly, I feel ones of all of these is absolutely fine. And I would probably, if anything, be closer to playing 2 dragons or 2 warriors rather than the sage, because the dragons and the warriors can still do something on their own, whereas the sage needs you to have another Regenesis card to be as useful as it wants to be. For the rest of the Regenesis cards, we are playing 3 of the Regenesis itself. So the idea behind this is this can become any of your Regenesis names, being able to search it out, and then still the graveyard effect can be very, very useful in the grind state. Free Regenesis code, quite like the cash version, the Beastial version gives you that ability to not rely on the extra deck that heavily, which is why I think it's even more important to be able to have a monster in the main deck that can go above 2500 attack. And like I've said before, targeted protection can be a real annoyance, especially if you're only out to something that can not be targeted, would be, or that can be targeted or is stronger, would be your warrior. Code will lock you out of the extra deck, and I think that it's less relevant in the cash tier version just because you have Fenrir and Unicorn. So the Unicorn can take away those extra deck cards that are going to be stronger and that are going to cause your field an issue. Stuff like your opponent's Typhon and everything else in between, SP Little Knights, you name it. And then the benefit of something like that as well is that Fenrir can deal with any monster that tries to trouble you or activate their effect. So that's where the benefit comes on a little bit more, is that the Beastials will help you deal with recursion from the graveyard and graveyard reviving, more so than the cash tiers, and the cash tiers will pretty much hit the threats before they even get into rotation. The final Regenesis card is 2 Regenesis Birth. Now I've actually upped this to 2, and I'm probably going to be doing the same with the cash tier version. It's one of the ones that once you get it, and if you resolve the Soul Shard-esque effect, you should be winning the duel, because all of those Regenesis will be coming back to your hand, and then as long as you can get a 2500 on the field, whether it be your side or your opponent's, you're going to be able to flood and pretty much go for the OTK. I kind of felt that there were so many times when my opponent was trying to target this, out it, banish it, get rid of it, and it's a little bit harder to kind of recycle it, that I felt that having 2 was not the end of the world, because even if you hard open it, it still becomes a very good disruption, and then still gives you that starter that you're going to need for the next turn if you do open up all Beastials, or in the other scenario, all cash tierers. You can still set up a cash tierer field and then build from there. I'm quite happy with it at 2. Some people can cut it back down to 1 if you want to. I feel that 2 is kind of like the balanced middle ground, whereas I feel 1's too little, 3's too much, 2 kind of feels just about right. So that's it for the Regenesis lineup. Moving on to the Beastials. So for the Beastials, we're going to be on 3 Lubellion. Now I have found more and more in testing this that you can't rely on yourself to set up your light and darks. And what I mean by that is the only light you're really ever going to be putting in the graveyard will be the Lubellion. Yes, of course, you can find that position where you're like, okay, use the Lubellion's effect, search out a Beastial, use the Beastial effect, target your own Lubellion and banish it. Absolutely fine, but then you're not really gaining much advantage unless that Beastial in your hand is going to be the Magnamut, because everything else like a Baldrake and a Saronir, you're not really going to be able to do much more with it after the fact of summoning it, because if you summon down a Druid Swarm, unless you're going second, it's not going to be much use for you. And you kind of really want to be able to get a Magnamut to the field, tribute it off, bringing back the Lubellion, and then get your Regained. And that could be very, very good in the Malice matchup. With Magnamut being at 1 and with Druid Swarm also being at 1, that's kind of where the Lubellion gets a little bit less effective. And what I mean by that is more times than not, sacrificing it and banishing it from the graveyard is not the end of the world. And usually in the past, what you'd be doing is trying to get another Light or Dark in the grave to banish that, so that you could tribute off your dragon to bring back the Lubellion. Lubellion sets the Regained or sets the Beast, depending on which one you're playing, and then move on from there. Because you're trying to rely on your opponent's Beast lights and darks a little bit more, that's when you can kind of set that up rather than yourself. And then you are going to be using your Beastial Lubellion as the sacrificial fodder from the graveyard, so keep that in mind. For the rest of the Beastials, on 2 of the Baldrake, it's kind of, again, a bit of a give and take. And what I mean by that one is the Baldrake is still very, very good, but you need that other light or dark to be able to send. The only other light that you play in Regenesis will, of course, be your Lord, which you don't really want to be sending off the Baldrake. So Baldrake is only going to be more effective with another Beastial in rotation, because you're going to ideally want to send that Beastial, which is why I'm highly tempted to bring Branded Beast back into the rotation, so I can constantly keep getting access to a Beastial should I need it on the field. Then we've got the 1 Magnamut, sadly at 1, alongside the 1 Druid Swarm and the 1 Saronir. The Saronir is mainly in here to be a target. I would like to again go with the Branded Beast, send in the Regained and then set in the Regained again in the end phase, but I feel you're just adding an additional card that you don't really need to be relying on if you're going second. The idea behind this is you want your Regenesis to provide you with the OTK capabilities going second, but you want your Beastials to be a disruption during your opponent's turn so that they can't constantly keep bringing back the Amakumo or the Sargis or anything like that for the Mitsurugi lineup. Then for the final branded card and Beastial card is, of course, the Branded Regain. Amazing against Malice, but then can still be quite useful for you in order to recycle some of your Beastial monsters and get you a fresh draw. So that's it for the Beastial lineup. Moving on to your generic hand traps, which is where the cash version of this deck and this version really do begin to shine, because they have so much space for non-engine. It's pretty crazy. So the hand traps of the format right now, I believe, are the most important will be your triple Fluros, and then backed up by triple Drow and Lockbird. If your environment is not affected by Drow and Lockbird, you're probably going to be in a Malice environment, and that's when you might want to consider main decking Lanciers, but that will really come down to the environment you're going to. I then made the call on this one to play 2 Ash Blossom, and the reason I only played 2 Ash Blossom is I really wanted to play a Ghost Spell and a Ghost Ogre. You don't have to play these. Like, very easily, this would become a 3rd Ash Blossom, and it would also become a 3rd Infinite Impermanence. It's something that I wanted to trial out, and the reason I put these in right at the last minute to add them back in to keep it as a 40 card is that I thought it was a no-brainer to be playing the one-off power play spells in the form of the Triple Tactic Talent, Crossout Designator, Pot of Prosperity, and Call by the Grave. Now, the idea behind Ogre and Bell is that they're not crossout targets. They are just generally there to be disruptive for my opponent. It's one of the ones that if you feel Bells could be more informative for you in that environment, you would bump Bell to 2, put Ghost Ogre out, and then vice versa, bump Ghost Ogre to 2 and get Bell out. It's entirely up to you on that type of ratio split. It's just something that I wanted to try out. If they're not that effective for me, then of course I will cut them out completely. Moving on to the extra deck. So for the extra deck on this one, again, it's very flexible depending on your playstyle and what you want to have access to. But one of the most important cards in the extra deck, in my opinion, will be the Typhon. Now, the reason this is so important is all of your monsters are 2500. So being able to slap this on top of any of your monsters whatsoever, and then being able to still get into Regenesis Lord and still use Typhon's effect to detach and bounce one. And what I mean by still getting into the Regenesis Lord is you'd still have Lord on the field and then go into the battle phase making it 5k. So this is one of the very few decks where putting down a Typhon is actually not a, okay, normal summon a monster, Typhon on top of it. It's one of the ones that Typhon can be your last play you make, and it can still be just as disruptive as anything else. For the rank 8 of the deck, I've got the 1 Buzz King and the 1 Dingirsu. So the idea behind this one is the Buzz King can be your disruptor and your burn con in time, and then Dingirsu can be your protector or your send. Again, another way if your opponent has cards that can't be targeted, being able to send them with Ding can be quite useful. For the rank 6s, I've got the 1 M7 and the 1 Utopia Beyond. Again, in this particular scenario, it's very rare you're going to get this considering you only have 5 level 6s in the entire deck. But being able to make the M7 gives you that ability to recycle some of your resource from the graveyard. So this is designed for the grind state. And the Utopia Beyond is that option to make a rank 6. So let's say you've got 2 Regenesis on the field, but you can't, they're like an 8 and a 7, and you've got 2 Beastials, and neither of those are Druid Swarm. You overlay those into Utopia Beyond. Utopia Beyond can then make the attack of all monsters your opponent currently controls become 0. When you do that, you've got Utopia Beyond going in for 3k, and then you'll have 2 Regenesis going in for the final 5k, which can be your push for an OTK if they've left their monsters in attack. So I kind of felt that this was a really good rank 6 generic option that could help you get that final push should you need it. If you don't want to be playing this, by all means, sub out the rank 6 engine. You have a lot of flexibility. The one thing that I was contemplating is whether I wanted to play something like a Gordian Slicer, Super Polymerization, or an Ultimate Slayer for the side deck. Ultimately, the way I looked at it was Ultimate Slayer was completely dead against the Mitsu matchup. Yes, Super Poly was probably the best option of all of those for the pure fact that Super Poly could help you deal with the Mitsu matchups in certain scenarios. It could also help you deal with the Malice matchup. Your opponent can't respond to it. The only downside of Super Poly is that it has to go into the extra deck and then it discards a card. The flip side of that as well is you need to keep in mind that the benefit of something like a Gordian Slicer or an Ultimate Slayer is that even if you've activated Regenesis code, you can still use Slayer or Slicer. Ultimately, by not going for Slicer, you pretty much burn through 12 cards in your extra deck because it's very rare you actually want to banish a card from the hand. And annoyingly, I'm pretty sure I heard someone say that Slicer has been ruled that you can't do one and the other. So you can't banish 1 card from your hand and 6 from the extra deck. You either have to choose to banish from the extra deck or banish from the hand, which I feel makes the card pretty much 10 times worse. If you could do one or the other, you could go, cool, banish 6 from my extra deck, banish 1 from my hand, happy days, we're good to return 2 monsters. Moving on to the synchros. So the synchros I've got is the 2 Vermilion mechs. So you've got the 1 Vermilion Dragon mech and the Navy Dragon mech. The reason behind these, and it's also the reason I wanted to keep Ghost Ogre and Ghost Bell in, and I'm also considering Ghost Mourner, just because I've got more level 3 tuners. But the idea is I normal summon one of those and go with my Beastials, I can get into my Vermilion mech or the Navy mech. The Navy mech gives you the ability that on special summon, you get to target face-up cards your opponent trials up to number of tuners in the graveyard to negate the effects until the end of the turn. If this Synchro Summon card is destroyed by card effect and sent to the graveyard, you get to target a tuner in your graveyard and add it back to the hand. So I get to recycle a hand trap for the grind state. The idea behind this one as well is that just the first hand trap that I normal summon, and as you saw from the entire list, there are no normal summons in the deck, that could become the tuner that I need for the Dragon Navy mech. But then on top of that as well, it's also that tuner in the graveyard that can be used to negate at least 1 card. The same can be said for the Vermilion Dragon mech, is that I get to banish a tuner from the hand, field, or graveyard to then target a card in the field and destroy it. And then if this Synchro Summon card is destroyed by card effect and sent to the graveyard, I get to target one of my banished tuners and add it to the hand. So again, the hand trap that is used to make this, or a hand trap that was used against my opponent during the previous turn, can be banished and used as fodder to clear off a card rather than negating a card, and then if this gets destroyed, I can bring one back. Again, completely flexible, so straight away, these are the 4 cards you can play around with that can be your Slayer targets or your Super Volley targets. Then I've got the level 9, or the final level 9 that I was playing around with was the Virtual World QB Xian. The reason that I quite like this one is that the Regenesis cards don't really mind that much about being banished. The Beastials will mind about being banished, but maybe mainly that's going to be your Druid Swarm because that wants to go to the graveyard. Magnemute, you don't really care if it's been banished because once it uses its effect, that's okay. And if it does end up getting banished, you can probably try and put it back with your Regained as well. What I liked about this one is in the Mitsu matchup, any card sent from the field to the graveyard is banished instead. Of course, they can still tribute from the deck, but what it means is as soon as they get the Amakumo on the field, if they can't clear off the Shen because you protect it or you just keep bringing it back, that Amakumo will then end up getting banished when it leaves the field. So that can be quite disruptive for them. And being able to sit on this does mean that if they want to try and tribute from the field or anything else, makes it a little bit more awkward. So they need to get this off the field first, and you're usually going to have protection to keep this around as you do. Then for the level 11 synchros, we've got a defensive Cursed Thunder God and then our aggressor Psychic End Punisher. Now, naturally, you're not going to be burning through your life points just as and when you see fit, but there will be times in a grind state that going for a Psychic End Punisher can be your OTK enabler, and the benefit of something like this is a hand trap plus one of your level 8s, the same for the Cursed Thunder God. So with the level 9s, it's your Beastial plus a hand trap, with your level 11s, it's your level 8 Regenesis Archfiend, and of course a hand trap. The Cursed Thunder God can give you disruption during your opponent's turn by destroying all face-up monsters they control, or their spells and traps. It can also gain you 300 life points every time your opponent activates a card or effect, and then you pay 1500 life points to Raigeki, or in theory, Harpy's Feather Duster. The final lineup will be the links, so pretty standard on this one. SP Little Knight, Dart the Dark Charmer. You could go for another Charmer if you wanted to, but the chances are that you're going to be using a Dark Monster to make this, and then anything else which you don't really mind. This can then work you, bring back any Dark Monster from your opponent's graveyard, work you into Selene. Selene, you should have enough spells in rotation by that point. Can also bring you back your... Regenesis Sage, which is your ideal spellcaster target, and then you'd work into Access Code. Again, very specific on this line because it means you have to have Sage in the graveyard. You would have used Sage as link material for Dark, maybe. You would have used it as tribute fodder or banish fodder or anything like that. As long as you got to the graveyard and you're able to bring it back, you'd then be able to go into Selene. Or even if you can't bring it back, just any other monster plus Selene would work you into Access Code. And the idea behind this one is Access Code becomes 53, banish a light, banish a dark, clear 2 cards off, pushing for 53, and you back this up with at least a Beastial and another card can push you in for the OTK. Again, more flex spots. It was just about giving you a variety of, I can make a synchro play, a rank play, or of course I can make a link play should I want to, in order to help me give me as many options as possible to disrupt and kind of beat my opponent's field. Moving on to the side deck. So for the side deck on this one, you got a bit of a lineup depending on your environment. Now for the baseline environment, you should be playing Artifact Lancia. If you don't have any Malice running around, like right now at our locals, we have like 1 to 2 Malice, the rest are on Mitsurugis, you could afford to cut this down. There's a couple of cards I'm going to show you for my last 3 of spots that you could also sub these out for as well, and I'll show you them towards the end of the side deck. I then decided to go with 2 Nibiru, and the reason I went with 2 Nibiru is I wanted to play 1, there can only be 1. A little bit risky with the Beastial lineup in comparison to the Kashtira lineup, but I felt that in a simplified game state, just being able to go, cool, Beastial, link it off, Beastial, link it off, and go on there and there and there. Under there can only be 1 can make it very awkward for matchups. 3 Dragon's Mind, because Beastials are 25, as well as the Regenesis on top of that. And then 2 Lightning Storm and the 1 Harpy's Feather Duster to deal with back rows and sometimes front rows. And then the final 3 slots, I was pretty much in a bit of a conundrum on this one. So as I mentioned, I was considering Gordian Slicer because I didn't need to change the extra deck. Then I considered Super Poly, but then I was like, what if I lock myself out of the extra decks? And then I was considering Ultimate Slayer. And then ultimately what I ended up going down to was trying to make a decision on one of these 3 playsets. So you could also consider Chaos Hunter instead of Artifact Lancer as well. And I was also considering Phantasme as a last minute kind of option on that one, but I'm pretty sure if I remember rightly, Phantasme is like awkward because I'm pretty sure Phantasme is like 2400 attack. But I could be wrong on that one actually. Tell you what, if I've got it to hand, which I don't think I do, I did have a Phantasme. Here we go. I did have a Phantasme in the hand. Yeah, so Phantasme is 2400. I thought it was a bit awkward, which is why I didn't really consider it that much. But the idea behind this one is I don't use a normal summon, or you don't use a normal summon, so Lava Golem can be a good option for you. The issue with Lava Golem is it tributes your opponent's Amna Makumo, and then that would allow them to trigger their effect. The best thing about it is if it does get treated and they trigger the effect to bring it back, it then is forced to Raigeki the field after the search, so you can kind of bait that out. Then if they have another way to revive it with something like Prayers, they'll still be able to then work their tribute into place. You don't really clear enough off with that. The Perulia was mainly matchup specific. If a matchup doesn't require you to use this or get the most out of this, then you'd be better off with something like a Ultimate Slayer or something like a Super Poly dependent. And in Evening Match, I just thought that it's one of these cards that a lot of people start to like forget about, that they go, okay, cool, no one really plays this card until you hear standby, main phase, battle phase, end of battle phase, and you go, ah, crap, that card still exists. So I felt like Evening Match is still a very, very good field breaker, especially with the Ryziel, even Mitsurugis, is that you would go evenly matched, and with the Mitsurugis, they might activate the Amna Makumo to make you discard a card, and you go, okay, that's fine, but still evenly matched to clear the field off. At that point, they either need to get rid of their tribute card, or they need to get rid of their Amna Makumo. They're not going to want to get rid of the Makumo because they're going to want that still to be in rotation as they only play one. So they're probably going to keep that on the field, or they're going to activate a card that tributes it off. This is where it gets a little bit awkward, is if they do have prayers, they then have to activate prayers, tribute it off, and then bring it back. In doing so, you've pretty much achieved your goal of what you were trying to do by baiting out that Raigeki-esque effect of the Amanakumo. But then in main phase 2, you just need a way to get rid of it. So something like a warrior could return it. But then you also still want to try and go into your extra deck, because being able to banish that reptile or being able to flip it face down and banish it is what's really going to give you the most advantage. You won't be able to complete your OTK, which is why the evenly match was something like a secondary thought, because you probably still want to be able to flood the field and then push for an OTK. Otherwise, they just go, cool, bait out the Sage and then Anamakumo, bring it back in Raigeki, and then you're in the exact same position you were a minute ago. So that's pretty much it for the entire profile. I tried to give it a bit of an insight in comparison to the Kashtira lineup. Honestly, I feel the Kashtira lineup is probably a little bit better, a bit more consistent, but I do feel that the environment will dictate just how good the Beastial lineup will be. What I mean by that, as I've mentioned previously, is if the Beastial lineup is, or if the environment is a lot of Blue Eyes, is a lot of Mitsurugis, and you're able to see your Beastials on a consistent basis, your Beastial version will trump the version of the Kashtira version. Because the Kashtira version really do get the best strength when they are going first, because that's when you can go unicorn and start to pick apart their pieces, whereas the Beastials get the benefit of going second a little bit better, because then they become disruptions themselves, giving you bodies on the field, and then can just be able to kind of pick boards and fields apart, setting you up with stronger monsters, setting you up with recursion spells, and then just being able to set you up with the 2500s you're going to need to reveal for your Archfiend as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you do have any questions, by all means, please put in the comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them. But for now, as always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.